So, I've got a question for all of you watching. How valuable are steals in the NBA, specifically as a stat? Because all the freaking time I see NBA fans, let me ask you, how many times have you seen this exact type of argument? You've got two dudes arguing about a player, debating how good this player is, and they start to talk about defense. Let's talk about Steph Curry. I think Steph Curry is a great example here. You got Steph Curry, and one dude says, I think Steph Curry is the best player in the league. And the dude next to him says, no, Steph Curry is a bad defender. And then dude number one, who I agree with the fact that Steph Curry is the best player in the league, by the way, he says, well, Steph Curry gets a lot of steals, so obviously Steph Curry is a good defender. You don't know what you're talking about. And I mean, man, every time I see something like this, I just facepalm. Because this dude, this hypothetical dude, has no idea what they are talking about. Steals do not automatically make someone a good defensive player, and I just need to make a video about this, because I swear, it's like every other day I have to explain this to someone, and it is exhausting. So I'm just going to dedicate a whole video to the topic. Let's look at the all-time steal leaders at first, because there is a reason that people generally associate getting steals with being a good defender. You look at the top 5 players all-time in steals. John Stockton, by a mile. Jason Kidd, Michael Jordan, Gary Payton, Chris Paul. So, for the top 5, some of the best defensive guards in NBA history, and John Stockton is also a very good defensive player, even if he's not exactly someone who is ever like a defensive player of the year candidate or anything close to it. In fact, looking at the top 13 all-time leader in steals, all the guys with at least 2,000 of them, every single one of them, I believe anyway, made at least one all-defense team in their career. Correct me if I'm wrong, pretty sure that is true. However, when you get to number 14 on the list, you have Allen Iverson with 1,983 steals. Some other guys who are very high on this list are Andre Iguodala, Magic Johnson, Russell Westbrook. I don't know why I said Iguodala there. He is a good defender. I'm thinking like old Iguodala. Iguodala in his prime is a very good defender. But these other dudes are either straight up bad defenders or just very average ones. Certainly not ones who you would say are like top 25 defensive guards of all time. So why do they have so many steals? Well, let me explain how the steal statistic works and why it's just not that valuable. Yes, a lot of these top guys get a lot of steals, but getting a steal is not always as valuable as a stat all on its own as it would be with context. Let me use Michael Jordan for the majority of this example. I think Michael Jordan is a great player to use for this because he was absolutely, undoubtedly, a very, very good defender. He won a Defensive Player of the Year, although it should have gone to Hakeem that season. He racked up a ton of steals. He was a very good shot blocker for a guard. He was versatile. He was super athletic. He hustled on defense. Dude was a great defender, no doubt. He deserved all the all-defense teams he got. He was a beast. However, I do believe, specifically because of his Defensive Player of the Year, and because people tend to overrate defense in the 90s just a little bit, specifically old heads who are like, oh, nobody plays defense today. I've made that whole video before. Michael Jordan is slightly overrated on defense, and a big reason why is because of his ability, or should I say, his habit, for chasing steals. Let me explain. Michael Jordan was a freak athlete, and one of the things he did on defense very, very well was jump the passing lanes to steal the ball. He had long arms, he had big hands, he was very fast, he liked to go out there and jump the lanes and steal the ball. However, something people do not take into account is how many times a player tries and fails to get a steal. All we see is how many steals they get. So using a hypothetical number here, because I really have no idea what the number is for MJ, let's say he gets about 2 steals a game, but let's say that he attempts to get 5 steals a game. So there are 3 steals which he goes for, where he jumps the passing lane and he misses. And in those situations, with most players, what you have just done is created a 4-on-5 defensive breakdown for your team. Your teammates now have to cover for you. Now, Michael Jordan is a very unique case as one of the most athletic players in NBA history, where he is usually able to get back on his man, he can contest from behind and go for a block, he can switch around, whatever. It's not as big of a deal when Michael Jordan does this as it is for many other players, such as older Kobe Bryant had this issue. Phil Jackson talks about it. It's a reason I don't think Kobe Bryant should have had quite as many all-defense teams as he does, but we're talking Michael Jordan here, we'll focus on him. Michael Jordan gets 2 steals a game. He also has 3 possessions where he rushes for a steal and misses, and sometimes that results in a defensive breakdown. So what you've got to look at here is, are Michael Jordan's steal gambles really a positive impact for his team, or is he gambling and failing more often than he is gambling and succeeding in getting these steals? And Michael Jordan is a very unique example because, once again, freak athlete, great length, etc. If you have most players doing something like this, they are not going to be able to get back to their man in the same way Michael Jordan is. So even if there's only a complete defensive breakdown 1 out of the 3 times or 2 out of the 3 times that Michael Jordan gambles for a steal, if you have someone a little bit shorter, a little bit slower, a little bit older going for these steals and failing, they're going to have a defensive breakdown, or should I say they're going to cause a defensive breakdown for their own team more often than Michael Jordan would have. Another issue with getting steals, something else with Michael Jordan, let me just talk about Michael Jordan's defense for a second here. For all the great things he did, if Michael Jordan had one issue on defense, besides the fact that, he was only 6'6", he couldn't, protect the rim at an elite level. If he had one issue, it was the fact that he chased the ball too much with his eyes and with his hands. He was always going for steals. Like I said earlier, he was jumping the passing lanes. Something else he did a lot was swiping at the ball in defense. He liked to try to smack it out of opponents' hands, to poke it out of their hands, and in some cases, again, this did often work. You've all seen that incredible play. He steals the ball from Karl Malone by poking it out of his hands. He gets the steal. They win the game in the finals, etc. It's an all-time great moment. What you don't see too often, however, is how in the early parts of Michael Jordan's career, and it was throughout his whole career, but it was especially an issue early in his career, Michael Jordan had an issue with fouls where he would swipe at the ball too much and he would foul the opposing player because they were waiting for him to do that. Once again, Michael Jordan sometimes resulted in a steal in these possessions, but more often than not, all he was doing was getting a foul, or even if he just swiped at the ball while they were dribbling it and he missed, once again, you are leaving yourself open to a defensive breakdown because you are now out of position on your own man. They can drive past you, your teammate has to help, and if they do, their man's open, or if they don't help, your man has a wide open lane to the basket. You're just creating problems for your own team. And even if you are sometimes creating scoring opportunities with your steals, you are sometimes breaking your own defense. And if you're doing that more than you're scoring, then it's just not worth it. It's not a defensive improvement. It would be better if you just stood there and stayed in front of your man. Case in point, Allen Iverson. This is the big one I hear all the time. I've made a whole video about him. I'm going to try not to focus on him too long here. But all the time I hear Sixers fans say, no, Allen Iverson, despite the fact that he was 5'11 and 160 pounds, he wasn't a bad defender because he got a whole bunch of steals. Well, first of all, he was a terrible defender. I don't know what to tell you. Ignoring the steals, he was too small, he was too skinny, he was too light, he could not guard anybody. He was not a good defender. I apologize for the noises in the background, by the way. I got some people at my house. They're being kind of loud. Hopefully you can't hear it, but I can, so I'm just apologizing now. Anyway, back to the video. Allen Iverson, not a good defender. However, when he's going for steals specifically, again, as bad as he is, man-to-man defense as bad as he is, it is still better just to have a body in front of your man than it is to leave them wide open. While Michael Jordan may have had an issue, at least he could get back most of the time to his own man. But when you've got someone like Allen Iverson who is so short and so small, He can't get a behind-the-back block on some dude. He's not jumping over some guy. As much of a freak athlete as he was, Allen Iverson is creating more defensive breakdowns than Michael Jordan was, and he is chasing these steals more because he knows he's not a good defender. But the problem is, you just can't leave your man wide open. Even if you're very good at getting steals, like AI was, it's just worse. It's just problematic. So you've got a dude here getting a ton of steals and being a very, very bad defender for his career. And before anyone just calls me an idiot in the comments for this or whatever, I want to re-clarify. Getting a steal is a good thing for your team. The problem is when you get a player who goes for them too often when they are not the right choice at the time. A great example here would be Draymond Green, someone who gets a lot of steals but very rarely gambles. He only reads the passing lanes and goes for steals when it truly is a great opportunity. You never see this dude, or you rarely see this dude, I should say, jumping out for a steal that he can't get and leaving his man wide open, breaking down the whole team's defense. However, that is something you see with a whole lot of these players who are high on steals. You see Steph Curry do it sometimes, you saw Allen Iverson do it a lot, and you even saw it with guys who were legitimately great defenders like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. All I'm saying is, please, 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 when you are arguing about a player's defense, you're saying how good they are on defense, do not use steals out of context. Yes, they very often are a good indicator of how good a player is on defense. Normally, players with a lot of steals are good defenders. But your argument for someone being good on defense cannot ever just be steals. Steals should never be the main dish of your argument. They should be a little side sauce over there that you add in at the end. You're like, by the way, on top of everything else this dude does well, he also gets a lot of steals. Not, Steph Curry's a good defender because he gets steals. And I'm saying, I think Steph Curry's an underrated defender, but the dude is not a great defender because of his steals. He's a great defender because it's underrated how strong he is. He does read the passing lanes well. He does stay in front of his man pretty well, okay? Not going to start a rant on Steph Curry here, but that's all I had to say, alright? I hope you agree with me in this video. I hope you understand where I'm coming from. And I really, really hope the next time you go to argue with somebody about how good of a defender someone is, you don't use frickin' steals as the main point in your argument. Thank you for watching.